So how did you go from...
Nita Farahany and I have come to Stanford University to see if we can use her brain to answer the question, can a brain scan decode her memory and tell whether or not she's seen a face before? Nita first looks at a set of 200 faces for just 2 seconds per face.
And will my brain remember things that I don't?
Your brain might remember things that you don't.
Wow.
There might be signatures of memory in your brain.
Nita, you ready? You ready to go into the tube?
I am. I'm ready to go in.
Oh, good luck.
Thank you.
Nita settles in for what will be over 2 hours in the MRI machine, while I get to watch with the memory decoder's inventor, Stanford's Anthony Wagner.
And she's going to have to decide for each face on the screen while she's in the scanner, does she recognize it as a face she's recently seen, or is it novel?
Okay, Nita, so this is where we're going to be collecting the brain data of whether you are remembering or whether you're seeing a brand new face.
This time, Nita again sees each face for just 2 seconds, then gets 8 seconds to decide if it's new or familiar. Meanwhile, the MRI is taking scans 2 seconds apart.
Are you looking into her brain specifically focusing on certain areas, or are you looking at patterns of activity all over the brain?
For this study, we're looking at patterns of activity all over the brain. We could look in specific areas, but what we're doing is we're looking at the pattern throughout the brain. Every face she's encountering is generating this complex pattern of activity.
So does that mean that when she recognizes a face that she's seen before, and consciously recognizes it, that's a pattern that shows up pretty much any time she recognizes a face that she's seen before?
Any time is a strong statement.
Okay.
I would,
a lot of the time.
A lot of the time.
Yeah.
So the work that we've done thus far, what we've shown is that on average about 80% of the time,
Oh, that's a lot.
we can accurately classify an old face that's recognized as old and distinguish that pattern from a new face that's perceived as novel.
It sounds like a fingerprint of recognition, not a fingerprint of a face, but of recognition.
That's right. I think what we're looking at is the neural fingerprint or the neural patterns associated with the conscious experience of recognizing a stimulus like a face. That begins to crack open the door. Maybe we would be tempted to use this in the real world.
In a courtroom with it.
Exactly.
Okay, Nita, fantastic job. So if you felt comfortable on that
Worried
last
about
round,
cracking open that door to the real world prematurely, Anthony and his team are now actively trying to break their own system.
So the goal of this study now is to see whether our memory decoding methods can work even when you're intentionally trying to conceal your memories for the faces.
Nita is given several tips on how to try to fool the memory decoder. One is to focus on the technical aspects of the photograph rather than the face itself. Another, when seeing a new face, is to remember someone it reminds her of. After another grueling hour in the scanner, with her brain probably spinning, Nita is finally freed.
A little dizzy, but good. Yeah, okay.
Excellent. So come on out.
All right.
Careful.
Okay.
Bravo.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
How did
it all
how
go?
did you do?
I don't know. It seemed like I couldn't remember very much, but I don't know. You'll tell me, right?
Okay, well, Tiffany's working on that right now.
While the numbers were being crunched, we all got to admire Nita's brain, which turned out to have flashed a signal of recognition well above chance while she was trying hard to cooperate.
It's exciting. And this white matter
But in the
here
second
is
experiment, when she was deliberately trying to confuse the decoder, its success rate fell to chance.
so as we
Anthony said before that this is a way to make sure that it's not going out into the real world prematurely and to discover in advance ways it can be defeated.
Sure.
So this must have some bearing on how you feel about this kind of work entering into the justice system.
I think I agree with Anthony that we really want to know how good this data is before we imagine it in the justice system. But I can already see ways in which it could be useful. We rely very heavily on eyewitness testimony, for example, in the criminal justice system, and it tends to be one of the things that is the most flawed. So trying to determine the likelihood that a person actually saw a face that they claim to have seen, and that it is that face and not some similar face, can be really important. A conviction or exoneration of a person in the criminal justice system.